7:47 here on your beautiful Friday morning wake-up call. As always, at the time, it's time for Friday with the Fuzz, so I'll hand it over to Mr. Michael Greene.
Thank you, Derek. In studio with me today is Elgin's Chief of Police, Jeff Roadway Swoboda. We're just talking SWAT nicknames. And,
the TV show,
Roadway.
TV.
Yeah.
Not on the SWAT, no.
Oh, it wasn't on the SWAT team?
No.
Did everybody have nicknames?
I'm sure they do. They don't. They keep it within their own themselves.
Oh,
nobody can know what
a secret society kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, no.
One thing you got is your nickname.
Yeah.
Your nickname. It's your secret.
Happy Friday.
Happy
Love
Friday.
being here on Friday mornings. Always a lot of fun getting the Friday started here at WRMN.
It's a good weekend. I was telling Derek this morning I got the daddy-daughter dance in Huntley tonight. So
Oh, do you really?
Looking forward to that. It'll be the first one I've gone to, actually. Rory, I know, has taken his daughters a number of times. But
nice. You can embarrass your daughter a little bit with some of the moves from the 80s.
I'm kind of hoping to just, like, all the dads will just kind of stand in one corner and all the daughters will go do their thing and we'll just... Yeah.
Just like dances a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Just stand on the side, look at other people across the room.
Yeah. Totally just hoping that's the case.
That sprinkler move is still hot. So
Is it still good?
You won't
Maybe
embarrass
you'll
her
show
with
me a
that.
couple moves, like when we're done here.
I will.
All right. Fairly slow week, which is always good. Like I said earlier, knock on wood, right? Not a lot going on, but a few different things happening. I know we'll get to some of the other stuff, but you were in Washington last week.
Yep.
Let's kind of go there first. So it was what, the Department of Justice, and you were there. Why?
Department of Justice was hosting an inaugural meeting, really just to talk about this. There's a lot of issues, obviously, in policing coming forward and planning for what's coming down the road, and this specific meeting was on the Sixth Amendment and the right to counsel, and so there was a large group of, I don't know, maybe 75 or 80 people that were there, mostly from the Department of Justice and some of the defense attorneys from around the country and the prosecutors, Association of Prosecutors Office, and just
So
a
it was
lot
all
of
different
people.
chiefs of police.
No, there was only a few of us.
Okay.
Yeah, there was only a few police chiefs invited, and so we went and just talked about the idea of right to counsel, how that works around the country, making sure that there's that people once arrested have the right to counsel, as it's a Sixth Amendment right that we all enjoy and we have. And so it was just a matter of kind of having that discussion. What does it look like? How do we ensure that, because as we're looking at, everybody's talking about reforming the criminal justice system. We have all these people in jail and all, what do we do? Well, let's just let people out and let's start looking at nonviolent offenders. And so what this group was really talking about was, how do we start at the very beginning when people maybe who shouldn't be in jail, how do we stop them initially from going to jail? Can people still be held accountable for for their conduct? But sometimes when mental illness is the issue, when a person is addicted to drugs is the issue, maybe they just don't have money for bond, and when they don't have money for bond, they sit for months in jail for things that if you and I got arrested for and we had a friend or ourselves, we could come up with $100, no problem.
Right.
Where other people don't have friends or any money themselves, where they can come up with a couple $100 to get out of jail, so they sit in jail for months at a time. Does that make sense? Is society any safer? So it's really just talking about, as we're looking at reform, and we're going to talk about body cameras, I think, here in a minute. That's just such a, that's an equipment thing that, okay, yeah, let's put some body cameras on police, let's get more video. That's one thing, but when you're really looking at trying to change the entire system and how do we make it more efficient and actually keep the people in jail who need to be in jail, but not keep the people in jail who it doesn't keep society any safer by having them in jail, and it's very expensive. And then how does that hit on society when people are, not in jail and they lose their job? And if they lose their job, then their family doesn't have money. If the family doesn't have money, is the family then have to go to the government for money and for food and all those things. So really just looking at it that way. So it was just it was the first meeting, very, very broad at, the 50,000 foot level as far as how does this look at.
Real high macro level. Like,
exactly.
Okay, here's some ideas and.
Right, and so it was a great meeting. It was I think the first of many that are going to be that are coming, and so a few of the police chiefs that were there were just talking about it from our vantage point as far as how that looks, and how we can luckily Kane County, how it's operated and how professional Kane County is. It's not the same in
that was one of the things I was
rural
thinking
Georgia.
of. Yeah, with the first offender program that Joe McMahon has. Right?
Exactly, from drug court, first offender program, all those things that we're doing. So sometimes you sit back and you say, well, I mean, it's run the right way. If you get arrested, you get a defense attorney. Well, again, we're looking at it broadly across the nation. And so, like I said, rural Georgia is a little different from Kane County, Illinois, and so we had a sheriff, I think she was from South Carolina, and just talking about what's going on in South Carolina. And there are people, there are times people get arrested and they don't have the right to counsel for months and months. And so, again, so they don't have money to get out, they don't have any representation in the courtroom, and they don't even see their attorney sometimes for months, and they're sitting in jail that entire time. So is that for maybe a nonviolent offense? So is that a proper use of our criminal justice system when jails are obviously very expensive, when jails are full, and we're talking about releasing people? This is really kind of on the front end. When do we maybe need to, people who don't need to be in jail until they're, and a lot of this is dealing with before the court case even happens. We're not even talking about convicted people. We're talking about people you were charged with a crime.
Right.
And now
you haven't necessarily been found guilty.
Right. And so now you're sitting in jail because you can't come up with a couple $100. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. So it's actually, I was honored to be asked to come out there and sit on this and talk about it. So there'll be more to come. But yeah, it was a great trip. Any trip to Washington, I love that city. And it was a very informative meeting. So more to come in the months and years ahead, I'm sure.
And even once the people do, just to kind of transition, they're arrested, they go through the system, they get released. Sometimes there's things they have to do, right, to stay in the good standing of the courts.
Yes.
Such as a sex offender who has to register and let you know where
WRMN.
he or she lives. And there was an arrest, a couple arrests recently in Elgin. And was just wondering, was this kind of like targeted?
No,
do you guys do like a cyclical thing? Is it an all year where you go and check on people to make sure that the address where they registered at is actually where they're living? And what are the repercussions?
Yeah,
Why not?
so it was.
This one was Francisco Monterrubio. The one I'm looking at was arrested for a registration violation.
Control.
Is it something that you do all the time? Like, could it be any day, or is it just a once a year kind of thing, or twice a year?
No, we have officers that are working with the sex offenders all the time. When I say working with them, they have to register. Generally, it's 10 years, but sometime, depending on the crime, it could be for the rest of their life. Yeah. And so it's mostly out of our crime-free housing unit is working on that, and they are. So at least once a year by law that we have to go out and make sure that they are registered where they're supposed to be at. Right. And so what we have done, especially around Halloween, we really ramp it up. So we do it twice a year. We do it more than the law says we have to do. And so this time was because of Halloween coming up. There are laws, they can't come out and we remind them that
they can't have their light on, they can't give out candy, they can't answer the door or something, right?
So we go out and tell them, remind them of that, that they can't do that. And during these checks leading up to the Halloween event, we found that there were some that were in violation. So we were able to track them down, find out that they weren't staying where they're supposed to be, they're in violation, so we arrested them. And
it depends, I guess, right? I was going to say, do they then go back to jail, or
Yeah, they go back to jail. They then have to go back to the in front of a judge and determine what are they going to go stay in jail, or what were the reasons why you weren't
I was just going to say, what
at.
are the typical reasons for not registering or not?
It could be anything from laziness. It could be from wanting to offend again, so they're trying to lay low. Or sometimes it's just kicked out of one house and had nowhere to go and forgot to because the rules are you register with the police department you're at, and so wherever you're living, and then you have to register. Tell the police department that you're leaving.
3 days.
It's a couple days, yeah. And so if I have to register here in Elgin, so I have to come and tell Elgin that I'm leaving, and then go and tell the new place where I'm living that I'm now inside in their community, and so our crime-free housing unit works with detectives and rope officers to make sure we go out. And I don't know the number right now, but so a few years ago it was a little over 100 different sex offenders that we track in Elgin. It's very easy for people to go on our website, and we basically link to the state's website for sex offender. Yep. You can pull up a map, you can see pictures. There's frequently asked questions on it. It's been a little while since I looked at it, but it talks about what are all the different charges people have to register for, and it's everything from child exploitation to actually contact with a child to sexual assault of a child. So there are dozens of different crimes.
There are apps out there too, and I know we talked about that previously too. But there are apps for your different smartphones that you can do as well that are geo-based, so you can actually pull it up and see, like within a geo-fenced area, who's around you.
Exactly. If they're near, because there are limitations for living close to a school, to a park. So all these things kind of come into play. There's a lot of information when dealing with sex offenders and making sure. And so we take it to one of our top priorities. I'm very proud of our unit who really works hard on this because, somebody falls through the cracks on this, or we're not keeping track and somebody's living where they shouldn't be living. The sex offenders in Elgin know that we're out multiple times a year checking on them, making sure that they know where they live, and they have to follow the rules. And we've arrested some for being at parks and things where they shouldn't be. So it's not a full-time job for any of our officers. It's kind of things they're doing on the side. Our Country Housing Unit's very busy, but it's one of the things they do in addition to working with the landlords, and our rope officers help out with these the sex offender registration. So it's a lot of work, but it's a very important work because, as I said, some are extremely dangerous, and we need to make sure we stay on top of it.
Last Saturday, you had made an arrest very early morning, kind of still Friday night to me, 12:20 in the morning, right? Responded to the 2100 block of Vernon Drive for a home invasion report. Evidently crawled through a window and pushed two people inside of the residence and punched them. I'd like the press release, was previously known to them.
Previously known.
You would imagine, right? I mean, it doesn't always happen, but I think that would probably be in certain types of crimes, right? It's usually people you know, right? It's certain types.
Oh yeah, right. I think it was maybe last week or the week before we had the person climbing through the bathroom window.
Yeah.
Remember that one? And then they were chased out, and we eventually caught them and arrested them. So this one was a different one, coming through, but knew the people. A fight ensued.
Came back
so a
later
couple people were hurt.
Reap some revenge.
And
I don't know.
We were able to arrest them, and so home invasion is a very serious charge, and so people understand home invasion. That's when you unlawfully enter someone's house, and there's some type of event that occurs inside where someone is victimized and they're actually injured. There's injuries, or you break in knowing that somebody is in there. So it's a little bit different than breaking into someone's home.
When they're not home.
Right, when they're not home, burglarizing it or doing something else. But when you break in and you think people are there, or people are there, then that brings it to a whole new level. So these were home invasion charges, and he went before. I don't know what his bond was. I don't think we have it on there.
Yeah, I don't have it in the release.
Okay.
Yeah,
but yeah, he went to bond call the next
you know
day.
what?
Felony charges.
Illinois Department of Corrections issued no bond warrant for him.
That's right. He had a
because
warrant
was
too.
on parole for a narcotics violation.
That's right.
Yeah.
So exactly. So it appears a very good arrest and got somebody off the street who needed to be off the street.
We've only got just a minute or two, and I think maybe we can
Time
kind
flies.
of yeah, right. I know, interesting article. It's relevant. It's in the news. It's very current. We're at the body cameras, and I know that was kind of one of the things we want to talk about. But the thing I guess that was interesting to me was one of only 3 agencies in all of Illinois that was done. That was awarded the grant. And 285 police departments, like you said, doesn't sound like a lot, but this was such an extensive grant, and it was because it was a pilot program. It was very hard work. Maybe we'll have Christy on in a week or two, who I know did the grant process. And
Well, actually, I did it, and she just put a cover letter on the top.
Oh, nice.
So, but,
well, since she doesn't want to come on air and state otherwise,
Right.
then that's what you go
I
with.
had her email my work out. It got approved, but yeah, she did some of the work. But yeah,
awesome.
yeah, 285 people or 285 agencies around the country put in for this. Whatever the number was it 75 that got
73 total across the United States.
But there were hundreds, if not thousands, that looked at it and said, "Okay, we're not going to do this." It was Christy, who has done other grant work in the past, but also through schooling has written a lot of papers and research and things. And she says this is probably from her thesis. And I don't want to speak for her, but she doesn't want to come on the show very often. So it was probably the most in-depth process that's ever had to be a part of. And so it took a ton because it's a pilot program. So they want to know how comfortable is this agency with technology? What technology are they already using? If you get it, how are we going to report back? Because they want to work with the agencies to see what's working, what's not, what the policies look like. So I know our next step is we have to send them off our policy. We then have to send off a budget of how we're going to use the money. And we're still looking at that because already we've only started using these body cameras. We just start in a test phase, kind of following ourselves. We don't have a full-fledged policy yet because we only have a few people. So we have a practice kind of, our legal department drew up of how we're going to be using the cameras till January 1st when the law kicks in. But as you're looking at this, it's going to, explode. We already do explode with Freedom of Information Acts. People want to see the video of everything. And so, is it going to cost, another person to be hired in our records department, which we're assuming that there's a high possibility that that's going to occur.
Right now you've got Russ.
We've got Russ and, there's
others.
others.
Right? I thought it was just...
Yeah. He's big, but he's not big enough to handle all of this stuff.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, no, we got a great team down in our records department. I think it's probably 6 full-timers down there. But
and you might need another yet, huh?
But just for video. Because this video is, if you call and you want the video, and you want body camera video of an incident you were on, and you want it from, 12 o'clock to 12:04, so that's only 4 minutes. But in that 4 minutes, there are other people that are in that, and then we're going to need some technology to blur out the face of other people who were there who don't want it. Because when you get a police report, you only get certain portions of it. You don't get everybody's name and date of birth.
It's redacted.
It's redacted. So we need to redact video now too, and so that's a whole nother issue. And so that's what we're working through. So what we told the city council as well as we're talking about this.
In that video, they can't be shown, right?
Is it inside someone's house, and what else is in there? So there's a lot of right to privacy. So this is just we're on the cutting edge of this, which is kind of cool. But it's also we don't know all the answers, right? And we don't know what this is going to look like when it's done. So we've been very clear with the council. And as we're going through this, that the grant is great, and we're going to be able to get a lot of equipment, but there is a potential that it's going to cost another person or two. We're not sure what it's going to look like as far as how are we going to respond to all these videos, keeping these videos, the cost in the back end, because it's great to have video. Cameras are between $500 $750 a piece, but the storage end of that, and the storage we have to keep. I think the state law is going to say for 90 days, unless it's flagged. So if there's a complaint about an officer or something else going on that we want to flag this for court purposes, then we have to keep it indefinitely. For years. And you can imagine, hundreds of officers out there doing, multiple traffic stops, video after video, and think how quickly video fills up. So the amount of storage we need. We're looking a little bit at
finding a cloud service.
Do you know anybody?
I might know some
you
people.
Might know some people. We've been in the talk looking at cloud. Cloud has its advantages, and obviously that's the way of the future for a lot of things. Yeah. Cloud also, once you're kind of locked in with cloud, then as far as transitioning. So we're still looking at that because we're wide open. Whether it's going to be cloud, whether we're going to have our own servers. There's a lot of that's another one of the big answers or questions that are out there. So that's the kind of the cool thing about being on the front end of this. A lot of people, I know we get calls, weekly from camera vendors to other agencies looking at, can we have a copy of your policy? Here's what's going on. I know I
saw recently where they were saying that they didn't want police to be able to review the camera in writing up the reports because the defendants don't get the opportunity to review the camera before making their statement.
Yeah, there's been talk about that.
Yeah, there was other interesting things that, again, I never would have thought of.
Yeah, we'll see if if there's any changes to the law as it stands now. Officers will be able to review that. When you're in there, and like I said, if something happens right here and you're trying to write a police report and there's multiple things going on, you might only capture portions of it. You don't have all of the facts. So there's just a lot to be learned. How it's going to work in court, playing these videos in court. I mean, some agencies have already been using them, so this isn't like it's brand new or anything. But it's a big deal, and we're working through it. And Commander Lally's been working with an entire team of people and have been doing a fantastic job. And I think we're gonna by the end of this, we're probably gonna test maybe close to 10 different cameras. I think we're probably like 6 or 7 right now. I think we got a few more coming. And then once we're done here, our goal is really probably by summertime have some guys with cameras.
You're gonna do all this before January 1 with all those more cameras there?
No, but the ones that we have will be under state law. The ones that we have out there now. At one point, we were looking at trying to have this done much quicker because we thought it was going to have to be a part of the budget process. But then once we got awarded the grant, and we're also using for the city's portion, we're using our drug asset forfeiture money. So then we're no longer tied to the calendar and ensuring that we have things ready for budget. Because as we talked, the city manager went through what the budget process is looking like for next year. So we're not tied by that and have to kind of. So now we're really just taking our time. We're doing all the research we can. I said, the old adage, measure twice, cut once. I said we're going to measure like 10 times with this because this is such an expensive endeavor.
Like a half a cut.
Exactly, and then slowly cut like your scissors, barely get it going. And so, because you need to get it right, because once, like we were talking about with cloud or self-store, once you make that decision, you're kind of pot committed, and you need to then stick with that because changing. We're going to go from servers. We're going to go from servers to cloud. It's like no, it's not. I mean, maybe it's easy, but it's also very expensive, and so it's we're doing a ton of research, and so it's interesting. I know we're learning a lot as we go through it, but it's fun. I like these kind of things, so it's great.
Yeah, technology is interesting.
Technology keeps changing.
Well, let's have you have to change with it.
That's deep.
Let's have
write that down.
Let's have another week. Say that again.
Technology's changing a lot.
You
heard it here first, Elgin.
Elgin's Chief of Police, Jeff Swoboda. Thank you so much for joining us every Friday, and I always look forward to this segment. It's my favorite.
Thanks for having me. I love coming in here and talking with you and the rest of the community. So, by all means, give us a call if there's something going on. But otherwise, can't believe it's going to be Thanksgiving here soon.
Yeah, it's coming up, man.
Coming soon.
Yep. You're listening to M1410, WRMN.
And Elgin.